Hi everyone, welcome to our YouTube channel. We just got back from an amazing trip to Scotland. We had a little bit of a couple work visits up there that brought us all over the country, and we spent a few days in Edinburgh. We took the train up to Edinburgh originally, then we drove to Glasgow, St. Andrews, Dundee, Aberdeen, really covered the entire kind of that side of the country and had an absolutely amazing time. Of course, Spark was along for the ride. She's a little tired out here, so she's sleeping, but we're going to tell you a little bit about our trip here.
Scottish countryside was really picturesque. It was exactly what I had pictured, sort of green fields, lots of flowers at this time of the year in the spring, a little bit of wildlife, and tons of sheep. So many sheep and cows. Very stunning, much greener than I've ever seen anywhere, just absolutely beautiful. We even drove through the Highlands, which is extra green, extra mountainy, and just really a beautiful area. When we were driving through the Highlands, I was actually thinking to myself, shouldn't there be some wildlife around here? This is a national park after all. And just as I was thinking this, I saw this herd of some sort of animal coming down the mountain. It turned out to be red deer, which are actually the largest mammals in the UK. So that was super cool to see. David got some awesome shots of them. And it was really cool to see this animal that we don't have in the US. It really looked very little like a white-tailed deer.
As you're driving, it's just amazing. I mean, you'll come across this, old churches or old buildings that have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years that are absolutely stunning. So it's worth just pulling over, seeing the sights. You'll see lighthouses on the North Sea. One of my favorite things is to go see the kind of different lighthouses and things around the world. And so we pulled over at one city. Where's this lighthouse kind of sticking out on this like jagged rock into the North Sea with these yellow fields of flowers behind it, and was absolutely one of the highlights. We then kept kind of driving up the coast on the way up to Aberdeen and pulled over at what was called Slains Castle, or New Slains Castle as it's referred to, where basically there was, I think, this earl or somebody who had built a castle. The king at the time took it away. When the earl would have got back in favor with the king, was able to rebuild this castle, which has since now kind of fallen back into disrepair. But it's just this huge labyrinth of a structure that sits right on the coast of the North Sea, and you can walk through the remains of this foundation. You can see the different tunnels where the different storage areas used to be. And it reminds me a lot of the Big Sur area of California, where you can just see these cliffs that jut down into the ocean, the waves kind of crashing below. So we did a drone flight there, got some amazing footage. I was a little nervous about it. The wind was whipping across the land, probably 20 to 30 mile an hour consistent winds with gusts that were even higher. So well outside of the manufacturer recommended wind amount for the drone, but decided to try it anyway, and got some footage that turned out really, really well. So overall, the driving is definitely worth it. Like I said, it's easy. It's not that hard to get used to driving on the left-hand side of the road for our American viewers, or for anyone who's not in, a British colony, but definitely worthwhile. One of the things you have to do if you're at Edinburgh is walk up to Arthur's Seat. This is a famous view that looks out over the city. Absolutely stunning. It's hard to miss. Anywhere that you're in Edinburgh, you can pretty much look up and see Arthur's Seat. It's this old volcanic formation. So we decided to do that. We took Spark over, it's very dog friendly, and started the walk, what we thought would be a casual, relaxed hike It was actually a lot more elevation, I think, than we had anticipated. It was not too grueling of a hike, but definitely not something that you'd want to do in improper footwear, if you will. We saw quite a few people that were trying to do it in heels or in flip-flops, and that's going to be a challenge for most folks. But when you make it to the top, it is absolutely beautiful. You have a view of the city. You have a view of the harbor off in the distance, and if you go during the springtime, you see these just amazing fields of these kind of flowers that kind of enclose the trail down. So it's a fun hike. You will definitely not be alone if you go on a weekend. There were a lot of other people that were doing the hike with us, but it was still fun. And if you have a dog in Edinburgh, it's a great place to bring them. We saw a lot of different dogs. Spark made a lot of friends, and it's a great way to tire them out before hitting a pub.
So the Royal Mile is sort of the street in Edinburgh that everybody will talk about. It's named the Royal Mile because it's a mile between two royal buildings, Edinburgh Castle and Holyrood Palace. So these are two really old royal houses, both huge, both super grand, and you can definitely do tours of both. The Royal Mile is sort of the quintessential Scotland, super old stone buildings with very little green space actually, very busy sidewalks, narrow roads, cobblestones, the works, and it's quite steep as well. This is where they used to build closes, which are actually narrow alleyways that people used to live in, and they're quite steep, so it's very interesting.
There's also Culton Hill, maybe not pronouncing that right, but it's a beautiful hill. Definitely recommend doing that. You have to walk up either some steps, or there's kind of a longer pathway that you can kind of wind up this kind of hill, I guess it is. And on the top they have the Scottish Monument, which are these kind of amazing pillars that stick out of the top of the hill. But again, you're also greeted with amazing views looking over the city, looking over the kind of harbor area. And if you kind of turn around, you also have amazing views of Arthur's Seat, which is kind of what we did. We hiked up to the hill, and then we walked down and kind of crossed town, and then hiked up the Arthur's Seat, which was a nice combination. Definitely tuckered Spark out.
The Meadows is this beautiful park in central Edinburgh, which is huge. It's massive green space. It doesn't have a lot of foliage, but the foliage it does have is really beautiful this time of year. It's tons of cherry blossom trees, so just huge fluffy pink trees everywhere with petals all over the place. It's beautiful. Something really worth seeing if you're in Edinburgh.
We really enjoyed our time in Edinburgh and Scotland. I think Edinburgh, we both felt like 2 to 3 days was enough, particularly with Spark. Made it a little bit more, well, it wasn't challenging, but it did limit a little bit of what you can do. Some of the tours and things weren't as dog friendly.
Yeah.
And so 2 to 3 days we felt like was a good amount. Definitely a little bit more like of a party city, I think, than I expected anyway.
Yeah.
We saw quite a few very large, what they call stag and hen parties in the UK, which would be your equivalent of like bachelorette parties. Also quite a few signs actually saying that they were not allowed at particular restaurants, and there's some rules, so it's interesting. You can tell it gets a little rowdy, but for the history, for seeing the city, we really recommend about 2 to 3 days, and then rent a car, drive around Scotland, enjoy the kind of picturesque countryside, because that for us I think was probably our favorite part.
Yes, definitely. I actually was surprised at how much I preferred the sort of small town Scotland to even Edinburgh, which I had been really looking forward to, and which did not disappoint. But you cannot beat a little Scottish seaside town. They're very, very cute, and the people tend to be very warm and friendly as well.
Absolutely. So if you like this video, go ahead and click on subscribe. This is our first time doing this format, so we'd love to know what you think. But appreciate everyone watching, and we'll see you next time.
See you.